Well, good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to have Lindsay, and I believe you're in Canada, Lindsay, are you?
Yes, I'm in British Columbia, Canada. Hi, John. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So, where's British Columbia? Is it kind of right-hand side, left-hand side?
Yeah, we're on the left-hand side, so we're on the
Yeah.
west coast, west
So it's
coast of
Pacific
Canada.
coast, isn't it?
Pacific, yeah,
So you're kind
Pacific.
of north of Washington State and places like that.
We're very close to Washington State, yes, north
Yeah.
of them.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And then what's your day job, Lindsay?
I'm a pharmacist.
Okay. All right.
I'm a
So
community pharmacist.
all right. So does that sort of prescriptions that doctors write out for people in the community, and then you sort of
hmm
no,
And then I interpret their handwriting, or now there's more electronics, right?
yeah.
So I do that, and I look out for, patient like interactions with medications
Sure.
and that kind of thing, right? So
Yeah,
yeah.
and then advising the patients as well, of course. So
And letting them know how their medications work,
yeah,
how to take them, the main side effects, that kind of thing.
would you say that's a scientific discipline?
I would hope so. I think so.
Yeah.
Yes,
Do you think that's important in healthcare to have a science-based
definitely.
practice?
Yes, definitely. It has to be evidence based, and
Yeah.
that's what we seek to do, right? So, for sure, that's
Is
very
is there
important.
an alternative to that if we're not evidence-based?
Well, I've seen alternatives. I've not practiced them, but yeah, there are definitely a lot of opinions out there
Hmm.
as to what is the best thing and what is not. But pharmacists do look to practice evidence-based medicine, and we really want to see our patients healthy. So
Absolutely.
managing their health care is more than just medication. It's about lifestyle. It's about a lot of different choices that they make. So it's nice to be able to help people in that way.
So
Mm-hmm.
do you think it's important to prevent disease as well as to treat it once it's occurred?
Yes, I think it's essential. And I think that's something that's definitely coming to the forefront now in medicine is that we all see that we are a lot sicker as a society, even worldwide, as we never imagined this, right? So the burden of chronic disease in Canada, specifically, I speak of Canada,
Hmm.
is so heavy when we start to talk about chronic diseases. And that's why part of the reason why this virus has been so terrible is because so many of us are so much sicker than we realize,
Hmm.
right? So
Hmm.
even if you just talk about
Comorbidities, yeah.
type 2 diabetes or anything like that, right? So
Yeah.
prevention is definitely key. It's something I'm very interested in. And I think it's something that needs to evolve worldwide for sure.
And more on Lindsay's work on that later on if you want to stick around for, for more information on this video. Now,
hmm
now, what's the weather like there today, Lindsay?
Yeah, so today is actually pretty nice. We've been having what I call a COVID summer. So it's actually been quite cool and cloudy. So it's been, around, I don't know, 18, 20 degrees, and we are kind of used to 30-degree Celsius weather during the
Oh,
summer.
so it's been coolish.
It's been very cool, and no one really knows what's going on. So we're calling it a COVID summer. We're still waiting for it to start, to be honest.
This has been, we've just talked about our science base, but this is a bit of a spooky year all round, really, isn't it?
Yes,
Weather seem to be different, pandemics different.
I think
There's
everything's been affected.
a few
Nothing's
things
really.
come together. Plagues
Mhm.
of locust in India and Africa. It's kind of
Yes, I saw
it's
that,
it's
and
been a strange year.
I'm just waiting for the next thing, but hopefully
No,
I'm
this
wrong.
this will be the last one, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Right. So British Columbia,
Mhm.
southeast of Canada. What
Mhm.
has your personal experience been, just as an
Good
ordinary
question.
citizen of COVID over the past sort of 6 months?
Yeah, so over the past 6 months, I mean, in mid-March, we experienced what was called, I call it a loose lockdown. So we were all told to stay home, but we could still leave, and we were encouraged to get out and get exercise, which is quite important, we know. So my children, I have two young children, so they were both taken out of school, and that affected my work as well.
Of course.
My husband's working from home, and so I think that's probably uh, a very common story, right? But in Canada, we've been able to, the people have adhered to the public health recommendations very well, and we are now benefiting from that adherence, right? So we've been able to flatten the curve more or less in Canada, and so now we are starting to open up like a lot of other places with so far very minimal increase in cases. So
Hmm.
That's been great. And but yeah, it's been a big life change. We certainly were not preparing for this when we celebrated, New
Indeed.
Year's 2020, right?
No, it
So
was just that these lockdowns would have been unimaginable in even as late as February, perhaps. It would be just unimaginable what has happened.
oh
So
yeah.
were these regulations Canada-wide, or were the particular regions for particular rules and things for particular states in Canada?
Yeah, so the provinces and territories all have their own provincial leadership, but the general message was pretty equal across Canada, and I think that that really helped. Everyone was kind of in the same boat, and also the politicians seemed to kind of be able to step to the side and let the medical professionals kind of guide and direct what were the best next steps. And I think that that has been very key in seeing how much success that we have had. So,
Well, what
yeah.
was the quality of communication between the medical sort of directors, the epidemiologists, the public health specialists, and the general public? Did they communicate on TV or social media or posters or?
Yeah, it started out, I think, mostly on TV. Now they are on social media. There's been a little bit of, I haven't seen too many posters and that kind of thing because we're not out as much, right?
Mhm.
But now, there was a bit of, I would say, a few months lag, it to the time that they actually got things out on social media. But definitely TV, our prime minister was doing daily broadcasts, and so was our provincial health officer. And so them showing up daily for the people, I think, was really important, especially in the first few months. They're starting to relax that slightly now, but I think that was really important. There was that transparency there. There was that constant communication, and I think that really helped with the adherence to the guidelines and with people understanding what was going on and feeling they could trust the health professionals that were leading the pandemic.
So one of the problems in my country was that the message has been, whether it's been inconsistent or not, it's been perceived as being inconsistent.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the impression in Canada, or did you feel they were sort of singing from the same hymn sheet all the way through?
I think what was difficult was that this is a novel virus, right? And we knew so little at the beginning. And so the information is constantly evolving, right? So I do think that the leadership has been quite consistent, although Teresa Tam, who's our chief public health officer, she's been criticized, say, for her communications on masks, because at the beginning she didn't recommend them and now she kind of is. And people are saying, well, that's changed. Well, the science has changed, right?
Yes, it has.
So it makes sense. So I think that overall it's been pretty consistent. It's difficult though when the information is evolving. I mean, almost daily at the beginning, things were changing. I was putting videos up and saying, listen, this is current as of today. Tomorrow might be another thing, right? So.
And what was the quality of communication like? What were the vast majority of Canadians able to understand the messages clearly?
Yeah, I think so. I think that it was a very clear message. I think that it was very easy to understand for a lot of different demographics and different people who are in different socioeconomic situations. It was very clear at the beginning: stay home, wash your hands, don't touch your face, that kind of thing, right? So very simple messaging, but very clear and very effective messaging. And we did see that in our numbers for the most part. Eastern Canada and Ontario and Quebec, they had they're still kind of having a bit more of an issue there. And their public health leadership there has been maybe not quite as clear as they could have been. And there are other factors involved as well. So, yeah.
The reason I'm stressing this is I just think it's so important that we have this communication from leaders that people trust and believe and take on board. And as a result of that, have you seen that people have complied with these messages in Canada?
Oh yes, for sure. The compliance was quite quick, and it seemed to just kind of happen almost overnight, and it continues to happen. I actually just saw something today saying, now that masks are being mandated kind of back east, we're seeing that just kind of overnight everyone's wearing masks, right? And so there's, I think that the public, a big key is the public, they have to trust leadership. And they've been able to trust for the most part in Canada. So we have reaped the benefits of that for sure. And I've seen other countries where it's not been the case, right? So, Yeah.
In my country being a case in point, I was at the supermarket this afternoon and just about no one was wearing masks. It's just quite
Yeah,
quite incredible.
yeah, it's funny. It depends where you go to, and that's
Yeah.
still the case where I am. So
Mm.
I went to one grocery store on one day and everyone's wearing masks. I went to another one, a different part of the city, no one was wearing masks. So, but there's been no clear communication, up until recently about it. So it takes a little while for people to
Yeah.
understand and to adopt and even to get a mask, right? To acquire one. So
Indeed, absolutely, yeah, yeah. Now, what about the different sort of political? I'm not familiar at all with Canadian politics. I assume you've got right-leaning parties and left-leaning parties. I mean,
mhm.
has there been any what we might call politicization of the message, or have the political parties kind of been on the same
I
side here?
I think for the most part, they've been on the same side. I haven't really seen very much as to any political, uprising or controversy, anything like that. It was all about, okay, this is a medical issue. This is a virus. Let's let the medical professionals lead this, and that's been a great blessing because we've just been able to follow what these people are saying. It has not, thankfully, for the most part, it has not really been a political issue when we talk about Canada as a nation.
So basically, I think the message is that Canada has moved as a nation. It's
Oh
moved
yes,
together. It's moved together.
yes,
It's understood together.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, we did have the advantage in Western Canada that the virus hit Eastern Canada first, right? So
Yes.
we were kind of able to learn from maybe some of their not mistakes, but what they experienced earlier, and so
Mm.
Western Canada was able to take a little bit of that and benefit from it, right? But yes, we've definitely moved forward as a nation. I think that Canada has been quite united in their response to the pandemic, for sure.
I think just in that simple conversation, you've highlighted some of the massively important points: the clarity of communication, the
Hmm.
consistency of communication as much as it can be,
Hmm.
the recognition of science and medical, epidemiological, scientific leadership, the
Yes.
political unity and the unity of the people,
Yes.
and that is that's perhaps more important than anything else that it's moved together in that way. I think that's
It's crucial. It's
it just
crucial. And
summarizes, and it's obvious when you think about it. A house divided against itself cannot stand, and
that's right.
get Canada's an illustration of a house moving forward united, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
So if I had to push you to tell me something that you think Canada's done badly.
Something that they've done badly. Oh, I I don't think that they've done anything badly, to be honest. I've watched everything very closely. I think that one area that I think has been something that has been a worldwide issue is the situation in long-term care homes. And that has exposed an area where we really need to reassess, what's happening in these care homes, how these care homes are even built. They're talking about issues with air conditioning right now in Eastern Canada because it's extremely hot and there's no real ventilation, right? And that's where we saw, I think it's over 96% of the deaths in Canada due to COVID-19 were in long-term care. And so that is something that I think it was an issue before. No one was really paying attention. Now we have to pay attention. And maybe we didn't act quite as quickly as we should have to protect these people. Everyone else could kind of isolate inside their own homes. These people were just kind of, stuck with whatever situation they had. And some were in better situations and others weren't. So I think that that's something that it's very serious, and it's something that needs to change,
And
definitely.
that is being addressed now, isn't it?
It is, and they've been doing some investigations into what's been going on even in Eastern Canada, and they are assessing it, and I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of change in that area, and rightly so. Needs to
Indeed,
change.
indeed.
Hmm.
I mean, I think this is one of the things the virus has done. It's cast a light on things that have just sort of been bungling along, if you like, or tolerated.
Well, and these aren't popular things to talk about in
No,
politics or to make
no.
changes about our healthcare system, and they're changes that take a long time. They take a lot of money, a lot of planning. They just can't happen overnight. So they're not necessarily the most popular, but they are now, and they're in the
Mm,
limelight, right? So
mm,
now these things will be dealt with. So that's one
mm.
of the silver linings, if you want to go that far. as to say like that these things will be addressed now and dealt with for sure.
Now, the other things that the virus has shed a light on is the high burden of morbidity generally in society.
Yeah.
Globally, for example, the prevalence of diabetes is probably 8-9% now. It's incredible. I mean, does Canada have similar problems?
Oh, definitely. The burden of chronic disease in Canada is immense. I was just reading the other day that there's probably over 1 million people in Canada with type 2 diabetes that are still undiagnosed. They don't even know that they have it.
So this is in context of a population of about 37 million,
Yes.
38 million.
Yes.
So that means we've got about 3% to 2 or 3% of the population of Canada that's undiagnosed diabetes type 2.
Yeah, and 40.
It's amazing in those terms, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is amazing, and it's also, a lot of these people may have more chronic diseases than just type 2 diabetes, right? There's a lot of people walking around with multiple chronic diseases. They don't know how vulnerable they are. They don't know how sick they are, and that's why preventative medicine is so important. We need to start tackling these issues before they become chronic disease, right?
Absolutely. And with the diabetes, very often you've got the obesity, the dyslipidemia, the hypertension.
Yes,
all these metabolic syndrome things, and most people watching this video know, but these things kill you if they're not corrected. They
do.
They're a ticking time bomb if they're not corrected, if they're not identified. I always taught my students the main clinical feature of high blood pressure is there are no clinical features of high blood pressure.
That's right.
But for most people,
yes.
You simply have to have these things tested. It's
that's right.
A high index of suspicion for these things is good. Yeah. Now, is Canada a fairly homogeneous population in terms of ethnicity? Or have you got Asian populations, and have you got First Nation, Indigenous peoples as well?
Oh, yes. We have First Nations peoples here, for sure. We do have Asians as well. We have a very high immigrant community here. So Canada is known to be a country that attracts and welcomes immigrant populations. So I would say we have quite a mosaic of people in our country.
If we think about the Indigenous peoples first, do they have a particularly high morbidity problem with a lot of coexisting diseases?
We definitely have issues with chronic disease, type 2 diabetes, renal issues, cardiovascular issues for sure. And it's interesting, those have not really left them more vulnerable to COVID-19. I'm not sure why. I was looking at the stats yesterday in Canada, and they've done fairly well. But yes, that is the chronic burden of chronic disease in First Nations people in Canada is something very serious, and it's something that we need to pay attention to.
I'm still collecting data on that, but the Indigenous peoples in the States often seem to be more severely affected. But that doesn't seem to be the case in Canada, which is good to hear.
Not from what I've seen so far. But I know it was a big concern because often they are living in poverty. Some don't have clean water in Canada. This is Canada. They should have clean water.
People in Canada don't have clean water. Is that what you're telling me?
Some people in Canada don't have clean water.
That is incredible. I'm sure most people don't realize that. That is amazing.
Yeah, well, they should, because it's something that needs to be addressed. And a lot of them are living in conditions that are overcrowded. And so that's another big issue, right? So, it's something that's very serious. And I know that Canada has improved conditions somewhat, but much work needs to be done in this area for sure.
And again, if this pandemic illuminates that can only be a good thing, can't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So there's an Asian population, I believe, in the cities in British Columbia.
Yes. So in Vancouver, British Columbia, we have a very high Asian population.
Now, what do you mean by Asian? In the UK, when we say Asian, we normally mean Indians, Bangladeshis, Pakistanis. Whereas in the States, I'm Korean, Japanese. What do you mean?
And that's what I mean. Sorry. I mean, people from Korea, Taiwan, Japan, China. We have a very high population of these individuals, especially in Vancouver and surrounding area.
So that's more East Asians then?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And what's the general burden of morbidity like in that population compared to, say, white Canadians? Is there a recognized difference there?
I haven't seen anything that differentiates them so much. I know that osteoporosis can be a big issue with them, especially in women, but I haven't seen anything specific as to this population in Canada thus far.
Because
I have.
Asians in the UK have a lot of diabetes, for example, quite a bit of
Mm-hmm,
hypertension.
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
So there's actually some data that shows that East Asians seem to do really quite well in terms of COVID-19 morbidity. So I think we need to remember Asia's a big place.
Oh yes, and huge populations. Yeah,
Specify the groupings we're talking about.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well noted.
Yeah. Now Canada's famous for someone called Dr. Henry. Who the heck is he, she?
Dr. Bonnie Henry is a she.
Yeah.
She is the provincial health officer for British Columbia, so that's the province that I live in, and
So
she
she's
has.
the big cheese in medicine in British
She's
Columbia.
yes, you could call her. You could call her the big cheese.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
she was just featured in the New York Times as they called her one of the most effective public health officials in the world. So she's been, and I'm sure this is just the beginning of the attention and awards that she's going to receive for her leadership. So it's been really neat to just kind of watch her throughout this pandemic and how she's reacted in a very humane way. She's been very transparent when she appears on television. She even kind of teared up in one of her first briefings when we were really locking everything down. And I think that just showed her humanity. And I think that was part of what really got people on board with what she was recommending, right? Which was staying home and not touching your face, washing your hands, that kind of thing. Her message has been very clear every time we see her on TV or on the computer or something like that. We know what to expect, and she's become a household name. Everyone knows Bonnie Henry, and everyone wants to meet her. There's even a fan club right now, the Bonnie Henry fan club. So, and
Okay.
rightly so. Mm-hmm.
No, that sounds great. And of course, a good leader is someone that people want to follow.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like if she's facilitated that, that's a really good thing. That's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, I believe you've got links with Brazil as well.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
My husband is Brazilian, and I have a lot of extended family in Brazil. Mm-hmm.
okay. And do you speak Portuguese?
Yes, I do.
Wow. Okay. Give us a blast then. Prove it.
Olá, olá os brasileiros, bem-vindos todos os brasileiros que estão assistindo esse vídeo hoje com o John Campbell. Estou muito feliz
I'm
de estar aqui.
convinced. Yeah, yeah. No, it must be
Yeah.
amazing because you are completely bilingual, aren't you?
Yes, I lived there for 5 years,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it was a lovely people there, really lovely. Mm-hmm.
I know this is not quite about Canada, but what kind of messages are you getting from Brazil?
Yeah, so we've been watching Brazil very closely, and my husband's family is from southeast Brazil, so the state of São Paulo, where there's huge populations, and it's been very devastating to watch the pandemic roll out in that area and in other regions in Brazil. So very different, very different feelings and very different response that's happened in Brazil. So the leadership has not been united, and there's been a lot of mixed messaging. And, Brazil is a country with a lot of socioeconomic challenges. And so it's been, for lack of a better word, it's been a little bit of a mess down there. And I have, part of my extended family, they're in the retail sector. So they have clothing stores and malls and that kind of thing. And, for example, the malls are closing and then a week later they're opening and now they're closing and open. And so it's very confusing and it's very frustrating for the general public. And people need to work there. Their government is not giving out money. They did at the beginning a little bit, but people really need to work. It's a matter of life or death for some people. They need to earn money and be able to buy food and take care of their families. So it's very serious.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the cohesive and leadership things that we pointed out about Canada, which are the strengths in Canada, haven't necessarily been replicated in other countries in the world. I think that's fair to say.
Yes.
Yeah,
definitely.
Now, what are the health services like in Canada? Have you got a fairly good health service, or do you struggle, or do you have to pay, or what's it like? I'm sure your stuff's excellent, but what's the rest of it like?
So we have public health here in Canada, and so most things are covered by public health. However, we do have our challenges. We have long waits for some surgeries and for some exams, like an MRI scan, CT scan, that kind of thing. And so COVID-19 has also exposed that. And I'm hoping there's going to be great changes to come from all of this, because it really exposed the vulnerability of our healthcare system. We shouldn't be operating hospitals at 103% capacity when at normal times, and then a pandemic rolls around and we have to, shut everything down. So I would say the healthcare in Canada is very good, but definitely room for improvement. And I'm looking forward to seeing some things improve for sure.
It does sound quite similar to the UK actually in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So things like elective surgery in some areas and cancer treatments and radiotherapy and quite a lot of those essential things have been put on hold because of the pandemic.
Yeah, and I know in our province they've just started rescheduling elective surgeries not too long ago, and they think that the backlog from about the 3 months that they were not doing elective surgeries is going to take them about 2 years. And these are
Really?
people who, when we say elective surgeries, these are people who need surgery. It's not just
Absolutely,
like
yeah. We don't do it for fun, do we?
it's not for fun, and
No, no.
it's not just something that's cosmetic. These are serious issues that need to be taken care of. And 2 years is quite a long time. So
yeah. It's much the same in the UK. And the other thing about the UK that's been concerning is it's back down to normal now, but for about 3 months there was an excess of deaths. So more people were dying than normal, even when you accounted for the COVID deaths.
yes, and what happened in Canada too, and I speak for my province specifically, is that people weren't seeking healthcare because they were afraid to go to the hospitals because of COVID-19. And so a lot of people, and the stats are still rolling out on that. A lot of people, I think, did die who didn't need to because they did not seek care quick enough.
And as well as things being cancelled, it's
yes.
Yeah,
and I think we're going to see the consequences of that in the months and even couple years to come. People who I know of someone who was supposed to have a mastectomy and it was put off, and she's still waiting. And when you're dealing with that at home with your family and that kind of stress, it's very serious, and it's something that I don't think anyone should ever have to go through.
I mean, it's such a good point, isn't it? Because I mean, it's stressful enough, as you and I know, being stuck home with family, especially for you with young kids at the moment. But to know there's a tumor growing inside you that you can't get taken out as well.
Yes.
Is
and not knowing what's happening or when the end is coming. Mm-hmm.
Just a devastating thing. Yeah. How do you see the rest of 2020, say? In Canada.
Well, let's talk.
What do you see? What do you see coming?
I'd love to have a crystal ball. I am concerned about a second wave. I have kids in school, and I am concerned that even with the good adherence that we have to all the different measures that we have to prevent COVID-19 from spreading, influenza is coming. It always comes. It comes every year. We know it's coming. We know COVID-19 is going to be out there as well, and as the temperatures, go down and we all tend to congregate inside and we turn our heaters on and the ventilation is minimal. Yeah. And, that happens at home, that happens in school. So I think that it's going to be a very different experience. I'm preparing to if I have to, I'll pull my kids out of school for a few months. I don't want to do that, but I think that it's definitely possible. So we'll see.
And of course, when someone gets influenza, the initial clinical features are basically the same as COVID-19. So they would have to do the social isolation and the 14 days and the testing and everything that goes with that. And the other thing that we didn't get too much data on last winter, although the limited data we did get was bad news. If someone has influenza type A, for example, and COVID-19 at the same time. Because just because you got one virus obviously doesn't mean to say you're not going to get another virus. So
for sure, that's right.
Yeah. So I think that will increase the case fatality rate if people are having both viruses at the same time. So that is a concern because we're not going to have a vaccine in 2020.
No, we're not. Even if they had one, the pure, the work just to distribute it and manufacture this, and it's not going to happen. So this is going to be our reality for the next 6 to 12 months.
Yes,
I would guess.
Yes. Yeah. 6 months absolute minimum, and hopefully it's all going to be finished in 12 months' time. But even then, the vaccine's not guaranteed until it's done. Now, what is vitamin D awareness like in Canada? Because Canada's pretty far north, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, you're like
Yes.
north of Seattle, you're north of Chicago.
Yes.
You know, you're way
Yes,
up
we
there.
are.
And so
Yes.
I'm assuming for 6 months of the year, it's pretty overcast, is it?
Oh yes, we have a lot of rain and a lot of snow and a lot of and very little sunlight. So the incidence of vitamin D deficiency is quite high in Canada. I don't know if there's very much awareness of it. I think this was a conversation that came up maybe about 5 or 6 years ago. It was in the news a lot, and a lot of people started taking vitamin D. But I think that that's something that kind of,
Okay, when
has
was
been
that? About 6
lost.
months back?
Hmm?
When was that,
No,
sorry?
I think that was about 5 or 6 years ago
Oh,
when
right.
people
Okay, so
first
there's
started
like a
talking
public
about.
awareness campaign.
There was a lot of news about vitamin D and the benefits of vitamin D, and people were talking about it a lot. And that kind of, because I remember my patients coming into the pharmacy and asking me about vitamin D, and I was a little bit hesitant because it was a little bit sensational at first.
Yeah.
And I do think that it's something that's kind of trailed off. I think that maybe those that were taking vitamin D back then might not be now, but it's still an issue because we don't get enough vitamin D in Canada. So it's definitely something that needs to be brought to the forefront. And I don't think that it has been in Canada. I don't think that that message has been communicated, and especially lately. I think it's something that, now is the time to start taking vitamin D before the cold and flu season hits, right?
Yes.
So you can't just start taking it and expect prevention.
I think so. It's a longer term preventative measure. I mean,
Yes.
my government basically has failed to take this message on board virtually entirely, and it seems to have picked on research that indicates there's not a lot of treatment value for vitamin D in acute COVID disease, which of course we know.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems to be pretty well ignoring the evidence that we have for vitamin D as being that people are deficient in vitamin D get more viral infections, more infections generally.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems to be a bit of a blind spot, and I can't quite work it out. Do you feel that lack of vitamin D would result in immune compromise?
From what I've read, definitely,
Mm.
definitely, it's
Yeah,
something
I mean,
that
that's the conclusion
it's
I've come
very
to. It's
clear.
clear. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and so
And it's a very simple way we could resolve, a lot of these things, right?
it's a variable that's so easy to correct, isn't it? And yeah,
Yes, I have my vitamin D here. That's my vitamin D.
How much do you take? 1,000.
Oh, I take 2,000 a day.
Yeah, so do I. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't today because it's sunny. I actually got a bit of
Yeah.
sunshine today. So
Oh,
yeah,
good.
I take 2,000, which of course is 50 micrograms. Yeah. Not telling the viewers how much to take, but that's how much.
No,
That's how
not
much
at
I
all.
take.
That's how much I take as well.
And coincidentally, me and Lindsay both take exactly the same amount. So
Yeah.
yeah.
We had a very dark winter, so I think that
Yeah.
I'm being conservative, to be honest. But yeah, I think that
I agree. I agree. Yeah. Now, what is the hope for an antiviral drug, do you think? I mean, are you bashing out antiviral drugs at the moment?
no. I don't think I'm skeptical.
I mean, we have acyclovir, don't we, for herpes simplex and
we
things.
have acyclovir, we have Tamiflu, we have valcyclovir, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
But when Tamiflu was what we used for H1N1, and it was very, I don't know if it really worked. I think it might have been more. I don't want to say too much about that, but
no, I think it reduced the course of the illness by a little bit, but I think you had to take it at a very early stage. It wasn't curative by any means, was it? It's not as if you take a tablet, then get up and go back to work.
Yeah, maybe it shortened the length of the time you were sick by a little bit. Maybe taking it kind of helped you feel better too. I don't know.
And then we have the antiretroviral drugs which suppress HIV. I think that's important to stress. It doesn't eradicate the virus; it just suppresses the HIV virus, or the HI virus rather. Yeah. So you're not sort of hopeful about some pill that you'll take and cure. Antiviral pill.
I'd welcome it, and I've been waiting for it to show up, but it hasn't happened yet. So at the beginning, I was more optimistic. Now it's I know there's a lot of studies going on, and there's news coming out. Every couple of weeks we learn a little bit more. So I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but I'm a little bit skeptical. I feel like we might be in this for the long run until a vaccine.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'm wrong. But I think that's kind of the way I see things going so far.
it does seem strange that, modern medicine can do quite a few clever things, but it can't treat most simple viral infections. I mean, it's just not acceptable to me. It's just, it's just, why can't you treat this?
Yes.
This is the most common infection in the world.
Yes.
And the medical treatment is go down and lie down till you feel better. It's
Yeah,
just,
it definitely is a gap. I think that there's definitely room for us to
yeah,
develop
yeah,
and do better in this area.
yeah. I don't know how comfortable you feel answering this, but I mean, when your patients come to you with fever, would you normally advocate antipyretics?
I would say to my patients generally, a fever, and this is the way that the body is protecting itself, and it's actually ramping itself up to fight infection. So I think that, if you have it often happens with children, and parents come in and they just want to give their child a, acetaminophen, or I don't know if it's paracetamol there.
Yeah.
And I say to the parents, if they're at the point where they can't eat or drink at all because of this fever, and there's just this general malaise and they cannot function, yes, give them something. Or if you're quite concerned, you're not sure whether to give them something, then, give me a call, that kind of thing. But I'm a little bit more hesitant to just say, yes, treat this fever and let's get rid of it. This is the body's natural response, right? So we do have acetaminophen or paracetamol. It's a good tool, but I think that it is overused, and I think there's maybe a lack of education around its use. So I don't think it's bad, but I think there's a time and place, and it shouldn't just be a straight go-to. And a lot of people think that it helps to get rid of a cold or a flu or something like that, and it doesn't. It's a Band-Aid. It's covering something up, and
it's a symptomatic treatment.
That's right.
So let's be quite clear. Paracetamol and acetaminophen are exactly the same thing.
Yes.
And it has no antiviral properties whatsoever.
That's right. That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're speaking strictly about fever here.
Yeah. It won't kill viruses, and it won't kill the bacteria.
And it won't shorten the duration of any disease.
No, that's good. Yeah. So I think it's fair, especially in adults, I think it's fair to say that it's been overused in the past. I think we could conservatively say that and be on fairly safe ground.
Definitely. And I see the same with ibuprofen. So, and that's something that concerns me as well.
Yeah. Lindsay, that is absolutely fantastic. Believe it or not, we've been talking for nearly 40 minutes and I haven't noticed the time pass.
Oh, I didn't realize.
Yeah. No, it's great. So I think we'll cut that there. I really appreciate you coming on.
I've
had quite a bit of flack for not covering Canada enough.
Yes, you need to pay attention to us, John.
I do, and I apologize to all Canadians unequivocally.
Apology accepted. We're very polite. We accept your apology.
Yeah. But the news actually is fairly hard to get from Canada. There's not.
Is it?
I found it fairly hard to get. Yeah, maybe I just haven't tried hard enough. But
yeah, well, we're here. We're here.
No, but it's just great to have a good example. And from what you've said, I am cautiously optimistic, but like you, I do really fear a big resurgence once the weather starts getting worse and people start closing the door and putting on the heating and not going out.
Yeah, I think the good thing is that people are more aware now, and they're going to be more prone to stay home rather than go to work, right? Yeah. So I think that there's going to be more people staying home. Yeah. We're going to have to be more careful. Maybe by being more careful, we can prevent a big resurgence, but it's definitely going to change the way that we live over the next 6 months for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Lindsay, thank you for that. I'm sure you'll get lots of dazzling comments and compliments on putting up with my silly questions. And
oh, I've enjoyed it very much. Yeah. Thank you, John.
Yeah, thanks.
It's been lovely.
Oh, I've heard a rumor you've been making videos. I take it this isn't true.
Yes, I am. I'm on YouTube now. Yeah, I'm making videos, and I'm really interested in preventative medicine. And I think that there's a lot of things that need to be covered and spoken to and educated on. So yes, I am making videos. It started during COVID-19, and I call it Friendly Pharmacy 5 because it's only 5 minutes. Some people don't have as great of an attention span. So
if you want to know about that, you're going to have to watch the next video.
Okay.